That was a very eventful first round of the playoffs. Moving on to round two, we just found out who Jazzmus has picked. So I think we'll get into that. This is the intro. So, Adam, you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, we'll get right into that.
All right, we are back. Talk about some injuries. These are more ones that kind of like affect the playoffs in our fantasy league rather than just like everything. But the big one, Jonathan Taylor, ankle sprain again. It's like the second time he's done it this year, maybe the third. And they said they might shut him down for the season. They're basically out of the playoff race, if not officially eliminated. It's like one scenario where they could get in, so probably going to just kind of shut him down for the year. Going to be tough to see kind of where Trevor goes from there. I'm assuming it kind of puts Cordero Patterson in that RB2 slot with Henry at the 1. He's got a few other guys, but none of them are like great options, and he's obviously built more around receivers. But that RB2 spot will definitely become a bigger question mark for Trevor moving forward.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. There was rumblings he might be starting Pierre Strong this week. Strong's had a couple of okay weeks.
Yeah, I think
recently.
if Ramondre didn't play, Pierre would have been in for a big, much bigger workload. But with Ramondre playing, he's definitely their like primary back, and then either Damian Harris or when he's healthy, or Kevin Harris and Pierre get like 30% or around that. So I don't know. It's tough to start him with Ramondre healthy, but it'll be I don't know who he goes.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely the biggest question going into this matchup. And Trevor obviously has the receivers that can put up points, but he's going to be playing Griffin, who I think is a very well-rounded team, as we saw last week.
Yeah, Jasmus. The big news was Jasmus chose Zach.
Yeah, which was kind of surprising, but I could also see it.
Yeah. Next, Hurts is hurt. I think it was his collarbone or shoulder.
Shoulder, I think it's a shoulder sprain.
Yeah, I saw something that he also like probably messed up his collarbone, and that he's probably going to be out for a while. I've seen a lot of sources. One saying he's going to miss a good amount of time. One saying it's like might play this week. So with him out, Eagles going to go to Minshew. So if we look at who's still in the playoffs there, it would be A.J. Brown for Trevor again. The last time I think Minshew made a spot start, he threw for like 250 and 2 touchdowns, so it wasn't horrible. Dallas's defense, obviously, going to have to survive like Micah Parsons, pretty good pass rush. They're no pretty strong defense.
Yeah.
Definitely like quarterback 2 is pretty weak and could be exploited there, but it's going to be interesting to see how that offense as a whole runs with Minshew at the helm rather than Hurts, who was putting up like an MVP conversation type season.
Yeah. Definitely hurts my team in the toilet bowl. I'm playing either Cherry or Matt, so hopefully it doesn't hurt me too much. But if you look at my last week's performance, I think Hurts was like 45% of my points.
Yeah, I think that's been a lot of the case this season. So
just last
who are you going to now, Baker?
Probably going to have to. Because other quarterbacks like Jimmy G and Jacoby Brissett both not playing. So
fitting for the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
And then the last big one, Tyler Lockett. I think he like dislocated, broke like a finger or two. They said he's probably going to miss a few weeks, so we might not see him for the rest of the fantasy playoffs. Probably definitely missing this week. He was a guy who I think I saw something where it's like he put over 10 points in like 8 or 9 straight games. So he was like a nice consistent flex, wide receiver 3 option, more of a flex on Zach's team, I guess. But like someone you could put in there, you're like, they're going to get me at least 10 to 13 with the opportunity of getting me like 20. now he's going to have to go elsewhere. I think those other options who he sat last week, if he did play the same starting lineup and just replaced him, Montgomery, who I think had like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, like 24 points.
Yeah, who I think is probably a good option. We'll see with Herbert coming back how much he's involved and whatnot, but I think Montgomery's definitely a pretty safe option to at least get some sort of workload. And then obviously Thielen too. Thielen only had 3 catches last game, but one was a touchdown, and he's already put up some big weeks for Zach to help get him to this point. So we'll see if he goes that way.
Yeah. Lockett being out does hurt Zach. I don't know if it's crippling, obviously. I think that was a big factor into maybe why Jazz was picked him. He says no Lockett. Herbert coming back off the IR, it kind of puts Montgomery's status, not status, but like performance in question a little bit, as we saw earlier this year. I don't think it's going to kill Zach, but it's definitely something to look for. Like, hey, if he loses by this much and one of his flex only has like 4 points, it's like, hey, maybe those 6 points change the whole thing.
Yeah, it'll also be interesting if this means even more of a role, more targets for DK, who is obviously on Trevor's team, so another one of those playoff teams. He has been getting around like 8 to 10 targets a game. Does that go up? Does he get like all the looks now? I don't really know who those other like
Could go like Marquise Goodwin.
yeah, some other Seattle pass catchers. I don't know who really is going to fit in that role. So, but I think those are the 3 main injuries that are directly affecting the playoffs. As usual, I'll probably forget someone and then
We'll talk about it later.
talk about it later. And then yeah, for declares this week, we obviously got the big one. Bijan officially said he's going in, so that's our 101 unless he dies. That's probably the only case where he's not. Sean Tucker, another running back, probably looked at with like a first round pick, maybe an early second, in kind of like that range. He's pretty fast, like another fast guy. Will probably run pretty fast at the combine. Got to see again about like his size and stuff, but he declared. And then Jalen Hyatt, probably the fastest player in this class. He can absolutely fly. He won the Biletnikoff this year, had like 15 touchdowns this season. So I feel like he kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't hearing much about him before this season, but definitely showed out this season. Could be like a Jameson Williams type, especially if he goes to the combine healthy, runs like a 4.3. He could end up being in the first round of the NFL draft and then possibly the first round of our fantasy draft. But I think those were the 3 big declares. Obviously, some other guys are also declaring. I think like Raheem Jarrett did.
You're forgetting the 2 most important ones.
Who?
Anthony Richardson and Tank Bigsby.
We've already talked about them.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. Those are the past ones.
Okay. I was just looking. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we talked about all these guys last time.
See, my notes confused you one week, and now yours confuse me this week. Yep.
So some other guys did too. Some smaller guys, some like late round guys. Good for them, but gonna have to see where they kind of come down to more towards draft season. But yeah, that's the news, and now we'll talk about teams.
Teams, and we're gonna use the power rankings graphic because I'm lazy.
All right. Welcome to power rankings. Well, we'll just talk about matchups last week. Obviously, I beat you. Duh. Doesn't really matter.
If it was so duh, then why did we both pick me?
I don't know. I feel like I probably should have picked myself as just a funny thing, but then I think I said that at the end instead. Who knows? But yeah, your team did bad.
Yeah.
Besides Hurts.
Yep.
And good luck in the next round.
I'll try.
The other matchup was Evan versus Steve. Evan lost. Steve got the win. Another matchup that everybody really cares about.
I mean, I personally care because I wanted the Anteaters get their 5th straight 7th place, but
That won't be the case this year. It'll be either me or Steve. And then at least Evan would have lost every playoff team if he did get in. So it's not like, man, he would have won the playoffs. So it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah.
And then for the actual playoff matchups, Griff called out James, and it worked, but he also would have beat Zach too. He would have beat everybody else.
would have beaten everybody.
So that was obviously, in hindsight, you'd never pick a harder opponent, but it might have been better. He's like, I could have kicked Zach out of the playoffs and then gone from there. Think of James as Zach is like a stronger opponent, but who knows? Griff got the big win, obviously. Jefferson went off. Josh Allen went off. Deontay finally had a big week. I think this might have been his best performance of the year. It indeed was. And then he even had a lot of guys on the bench looking pretty good. Latavius Murray went for 130 yards, a touchdown. Raheem Mostert put up 16 points. Boyd had a pretty good game too. James, kind of like we were expecting, just didn't have the strong enough team, wasn't healthy enough at the end of the season, had to rely on Van Jefferson and Gerald Everett.
Not great.
Not great at all. I think the big question mark here with Griff's team is obviously Mark Andrews. He's kind of become non-existent since week 7. He's broken 10 twice, but that could be partly with Huntley, but it's also probably, I don't know, Lamar wasn't out that whole time, so he's going to need, if he wants to win this championship, he'd probably need a big bounce back 20-point week. That would help this team tremendously over these next few weeks. And then in the matchup that we looked at as 50-50, finished pretty close. Zach won 160 to 140. McCaffrey played really well. Kittle finally played well on Zach's team with the 2-touchdown performance.
Definitely boosted by Debo being out.
Yeah, same with McCaffrey, who had 8 targets, 6 catches, 30 yards for the year, ran for 100 and a touchdown on the ground too. This year was the kind of in the tail of Devontae, where it's like he's only scored 6 when he had scored 30 plus in 3 out of 5 weeks, and the one he did in it was 27. So it's he's been playing really well. A little bit of a down week. We'll see if that bounces back against Pittsburgh, who's a pretty weak opponent compared to who he was just going up against, New England. See if he gets the big bounce back there. Obviously, A.J. Dillon went into concussion protocol, so he's probably fine for next week. But if he does miss, Aaron Jones gets a few more carries, a few more targets. That could help him. And then Ethan, put together a good season. Just wasn't enough in the end. Kind of went out the way that it's been the whole season of putting up 140, facing 160.
Yeah. An ironic end of the season for Ethan.
Yeah. He won't get the back-to-back titles, but team's still solid. Kelsey obviously played well. Chase. Chubb kind of definitely disappointed over these past few weeks, where he basically scored 9 points in all 3 of them. Once Watson came back, Chubb got worse.
I think the Browns just more or less got worse.
Yeah, that definitely could be the case. Olave, who has definitely showed promise as a rookie, kind of went out. He only played 49% of snaps. I don't know what happened. I don't think he was hurt, but it seems just kind of weird what they're doing over there. Has definitely shown a lot of promise, had a few big weeks. Amari Cooper, another kind of disappointing way to end the season, but looks promising towards next year. He's young. He'll have a Chase. Still have Olave, really young. Jahan Dotson played really well on his bench. Caught a touchdown, made some big plays. Another of a bright spot on this team. Expect this team to be good again next year. Wasn't the year, unfortunately. And then now it is interesting because we got the 4 teams left: Jasmus, Griff, Trevor, Zach, and Griff's the only one that has won a championship before. So I'd say 75% shot. We're gonna get our 5th straight different champion in 5 straight seasons. So I think that kind of shows how much the league has really like turns over year in year out. We're not seeing like one dynasty, even though like Cherry was kind of looked at as a dynasty, only finished with 1. Trevor obviously always getting to the playoffs, hasn't won one yet. This could be the year. So yeah, 5 different champs maybe in 5 straight years, with Griff trying to be the first team to
Repeat.
repeat. And he won in the first year, so it wouldn't have even been for 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting.
That is pretty cool.
Then I guess now we could just talk about next week's matchups. Talk about some matchup previews.
I like that pivot. You're learning really nicely. We'll see you there. All right, we're back with kind of a matchup preview. So we're going to start with the games that don't matter. And we'll start in the AIDS Bowl. Oh, last week, Adam and I we had the same picks. We went 2-2. I don't care what our record really is. It's up here. You can read. I don't care. So to start it off, we're going to have me versus Cherry. This game is going to be bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hurts not playing wouldn't help me. But I am playing Cherry, who also isn't good. That's kind of what happens when you get to this time of year. So, Adam, who do you think is going to win this one?
I'll go with losing Hurts definitely hurts you. So I'll say Cherry wins.
Okay, I need to catch up in games, so I'm going to pick myself. And yeah.
Sounds good.
The next game is Matt versus Evan. I think Evan wins this pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's hard to...
I don't know. Matt would have beat him this week.
He would have, but that was not this week. Or that was not last week. This is this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take Evan too.
Yeah. And then for the placement game, which we'll briefly talk about, it's Adam versus Steve. Do you plan on trying this week or no?
I'm taking myself. I'm going to finish in 7th place.
Okay, I will also take Adam. I didn't know if you're going to throw in all the backups or not.
Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll have fun with it. Who cares?
All right, so yeah. I'll take Adam. And then we'll start with the placement game. That doesn't mean anything in the actual playoffs. That's Ethan versus James.
For 5th place.
For 5th place. Does that affect picks at all or no?
No.
Okay. So Ethan has already locked in pick 8.
Yeah, Ethan has pick 8. James has pick 7. Matt owns James's pick.
Okay. I will be taking Ethan here, assuming Ethan plays his starters, because James's team is still banged up.
Yeah, I'll take Ethan too.
He's not going to have Pierce. He's not going to have Debo.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. And now we get into the ones that actually matter, the real playoffs. So I guess we'll start with wide receiver U versus the Devil Rays. Griffin coming into this has done pretty well. He opens the playoffs hot. I should say he ended the season kind of cool. Questions were, could he still put up some of those higher numbers that we saw earlier? And then he went and dropped the most points in the league this week. Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson. And if we look at teams, which we definitely do sometimes, Amon-Ra playing Carolina, we kind of a tougher matchup for him, I think. Depends if J.C. Horn's going to be shadowing him all day or maybe Jameson. Godwin finally came back to life with 22 last week. He plays Arizona, so that's a pretty favorable matchup, I think. And Then you look over at Trevor. He is at the moment starting Tom Brady unless Lamar wants to come back, which I don't think he will this week. Also going to be missing Damian Harris and now Jonathan Taylor. So he is kind of banged up heading into this week. DK Metcalf playing Kansas City, kind of a good match, especially with Lockett probably going to be out. But Higgins versus New England, as we saw, New England kind of shut down Devontae last week. So it will be interesting to see stuff there. And also Derrick Henry's playing Houston, and usually when Derrick Henry plays Houston, he just destroys them. I think for this one, I'm probably going to go with the Devil Rays. I just think they look really good, and Trevor has a couple injuries that might hurt him. I still think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I'm going to take Trevor. Derrick Henry versus the Texans he averages like 35. He put up like 35 this year, 40 like 2 years ago. Texans have the worst run defense by far in the NFL. So that's an easy smash spot for Derrick Henry. Kamara also against the Browns. The Browns have been one of the worst defenses against fantasy running backs, but it's also the question. The Saints don't like to use Kamara for some reason. So I think that'll be interesting. Atlanta is also pretty bad against the tight end. So if there was a time for Mark Andrews to bounce back, it would definitely be this week. And then I like Godwin on Sunday night. It'll be Griff's gonna be his last player to play. And then Pittman on Monday night for Trevor. So if Griff has the lead and needs Pittman to catch up, Pittman's kind of been good for around 13, 15 points. And I think it'll probably be a pretty close game. But I think the Derrick Henry versus the Texans is going to be a little bit too much. Same thing. Jefferson, he's put up 30 plus in 2 straight weeks. Feel like it might be kind of only a 15-point week. It's hard to just continuously put up those 30 points. If there was someone to do it, it's Jefferson. I think he wants to break 2,000 receiving yards this year, so he needs over 100 a game. I think the Vikings are also kind of trying to look to do that. But I don't know, 30 points is a tall task, so I think he might be more low 20s.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I think it's definitely going to be a close one. One that could even be considered a matchup of the week if it wasn't for our next matchup. Well, at least what I think is a matchup of the week, which is Jasmus versus Zach. Jasmus did pick Zach, and it's not going to be an easy task for Jasmus. He did kind of roll through the regular season just fine. But, I mean, over the last couple weeks, Zach has probably been the hottest team in the league, scoring 160 this week against Ethan. McCaffrey versus Washington is going to be an interesting matchup to watch, I think. Washington's got a pretty decent defense. Devontae Adams definitely having an easier opponent against Pittsburgh. But the big question is obviously going to be, who does Zach fill in for Tyler Lockett? Right now, I think he has Adam Thielen, who, if we look, is been decent over the last couple weeks. 19 points against Detroit week 14, 13 this week against Indianapolis. Very clearly the wide receiver 2, but he is wide receiver 26 in PPR. And Evans against Arizona is another one that I like. We obviously talked about that with Griffin and Godwin. So one of them I think is due for a big game, but also Burrow versus New England isn't the easiest. So I don't know if I can go against the well. I'm not going to. I'm going to be taking Jasmus to continue the season of what could be.
Yeah. I think, this matchup gets kicked off. It's the only one in any of these matchups to really have anybody playing on Thursday night with Jasmus. Starts Zay Jones against the Jets. Jets obviously have been one of the best defenses against the pass. They've shut down the likes of Diggs, a lot of other people. It's tough, especially short week 2 at New England, at MetLife. Probably going to be a low-scoring game if we know the Jets. Jets like not scoring points, but also limiting the opponent to scoring points. now that everybody thinks that it'll probably be a shootout, but I think Zay Jones is more likely to put up one of those 6 point weeks rather than like the 30 point weeks, which we've definitely seen both of over this season.
I mean, coming in, he has to have 2 straight weeks of breaking at least 20, 21, and 34, respectively.
And then the week before that
was 3.
Yeah, and I think it's more likely to have that against a stronger Jets defense. But again, if he just gets enough targets, he could find his way to the teens, score a touchdown. He could be in those 20s. Obviously, Jasmus then has. This one's kind of interesting because Jasmus has most of his people playing later in the week. He'll have Eckler on Monday, James Conner on Sunday night, and then even like Sunday during the day, he'll have Tyreek. So 3 of his like best players are going to be going at night or on Christmas, when most of the games are going to be on Christmas Eve on Saturday. So I think Eckler could definitely spark a big comeback on Monday night for Jasmus if needed. He's put up 30 multiple times, so it's really going to be like no lead safe if Zach even has the lead going into that night. Sunday, it'll kind of be a matchup between James Conner. Sunday night, it'll be a matchup between James Conner for Jasmus and Evans for Zach. Evans has been pretty inconsistent. Finally had a big week, but it's like we've joked about it. Most of his big plays seem to get called back. He's just not really connecting. The whole Bucs offense pretty much looks bad. And then we'll see what kind of James Conner can do. Not the best matchup. And then I think I'm also going to go with Jasmus. Washington has a strong defense. They're good against running backs. They're good against the tight end. They're playing San Fran, where Zach has the running back in McCaffrey and tight end in Kittle. Kittle's shown to be a little bit like up and down, where he'll either put up 5 on like 3 catches for like 30 yards, or he'll have 5, 6, 7 catches, a touchdown or 2. Could definitely like win you a week. Could also put him in a little bit of a tough spot. Same thing though with Njoku. The Saints are really good against the tight end, so I think Njoku, it's going to be a little bit of a tough start. So we could see minimal production from both tight ends. And then the Patriots, they have a solid defense against fantasy. They're similar to the Jets, where instead of just always like outscoring the opponents, it's more we're going to try to just hold them to less what we can score. And then that's going up against the Bengals, where he'll have Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. So another kind of tough matchup there. So that's kind of, I think Zach has some tough matchups for his stars. So I think Jasmus is going to get the win. Like Jasmus said too, he kind of called it back to the first AIDS Bowl.
Yeah.
Zach versus Jasmus. Basically, since that first year, Jasmus is undefeated against Zach. He's won his last, I think, 4 or 5 matchups in a row. 4 matchups. So Jasmus has had Zach's number, takes that into it, knowing that he's kind of been dominant throughout this recent past history. We'll see if he can keep that up in the playoffs when it matters the most. And then just, with the Griff-Trevor matchup, Griff has won the last 3 matchups against Trevor. Before that, it was kind of pretty even, so Griff's kind of had Trevor's number recently. I do think Trevor gets over that hump, gets revenge for that 2018 playoff week, which he just sent out a statement kind of talking about how he's 2-1 in week 16. The one loss was to Griff. I think he gets his revenge this week, gets the win. So we set up for a Jasmus Trevor. I guess I'm just taking the chalk. Jasmus and Trevor final.
Yeah, I think it might be Jasmus and Griff, the new, or Jasmus trying to take down the very first champion to get his first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep the cycle going of every year having a new champion.
Yeah, I think we've reached the point. I think all of these 4 teams are really strong. They're probably the 4 teams that deserve to be here. Ethan definitely kind of has a case. He was really strong, but it just never seemed to really work out for him.
Yeah.
But I think I'd say if we looked on paper, these are the best 4 teams in the division, and I think
absolutely.
These matchups definitely could go either way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's going to be interesting to watch, so make sure you tune in. And also, I guess we'll just get right into questions from around the league. Maybe a little shorter than last week, but we'll see.
We will see.
All right, let's get into it. we're back once again. Questions from around the league, fan questions, whatever you really want to call them. Let's just jump right into it here. So we have a couple from Griffin to start it off. First one is, do we have a name for the Sock League championship, the Sock League Bowl? We just call it the championship.
Yeah, Sock League Championship, I feel like is what we kind of usually go with, but I don't know if we come up with a name or
We could
something.
do like the Sock Bowl, or like I don't know.
I usually just go with Sock League Championship, but yeah.
Yeah. And he also asked, should we do a championship watch party?
That'd be fun.
That would be pretty fun.
It would be on New Year's Day, though.
Yeah.
So, depending on where people are, what people are doing, kind of everything like that. Because that is like the Sunday slate of games. Not this week, but the week after. So, it would be on, New Year's Day. But, I mean, if people aren't doing anything and we find a spot and people are able to make it, I think that would definitely be fun.
Yeah, maybe we could even go live on our YouTube channel and give updates. I don't know. Or just sit down, do things. We could always, have like the screen show like the championship matchup, and like you see something that happens, like, oh shit, like now this person's projected to win. It's going crazy. I don't know. Is that stupid? Am I stupid?
I don't know. I just thought it would be more like we get together.
We could also just do that too.
And then it's like who would be watching? Be together.
Yeah, that's true. And then also, Griffin wanted to know what we thought of this image he made. You clearly see it right here. I think it's
Yeah, it's cool.
it's cool.
I like it.
I think it does call it the Sock Bowl, but I do
Yeah.
like
Sock Bowl 5.
Sock Bowl 5.
Looks cool.
It does definitely look cool, so we'll definitely
That
keep
could,
that in consideration.
yeah, could possibly be a picture for
And yeah,
this Sock Bowl, and then we could try to kind of make something like that, or see what people think. Go
Yeah.
with something like that for the future champions and stuff.
very well could.
Ethan, I also still have the nameplate that I've never given to you for the trophy. It's still in my house, in my room. We'll get that to you or whoever has the trophy next at some point.
But your name will be on it.
Your name will be on it. The plate is here. Sorry about that. Never saw you.
Yeah, we never really did Sakis again. But now, speaking of Ethan, we're going to just look away from the playoffs now. We're going to look towards the future a little bit. He just asked us, what do you think Bajan's ADP will be in redraft leagues next year, and what do you think it should be?
I think it's obviously still early to tell what team is he on. Like, there is always the opportunity that he goes to a team where it's like a muddied backfield where it's like, yeah, he's probably the best, but we've seen this from other running backs before. Like, you look at Nick Chubb, his first 4 weeks of his rookie season, it's like he was getting 2 carries, and then he finally had a game where those 2 carries were 50-yard touchdowns, and they're like, oh, maybe we should use this guy more. So who knows what team he's on, but it'll probably be end of first round, I'd guess.
End of first, maybe early second, if depending on landing spot. I'd think.
Yeah, I think it also probably does deserve to be around there. You look at some of these other guys' rookie seasons. Saquon, his rookie year was great. Gurley, I think his first year was really good, and then he had a sophomore slump and then bounced back. But if you look at these top running back prospects coming in, they usually help out immediately, perform. So I'm guessing even Josh Jacobs, who wasn't looked at as highly as those guys, he had a really strong first year. Hall and Walker were having good seasons, kind of got banged up, but yeah, he's probably worth a late first round pick in redraft. So I'd guess around there. Depends on what obviously happens with receivers and other running backs.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think if there's a guy like maybe Jefferson or Tyreek, when you're looking at redraft at least, maybe don't take a shot on a rookie who's probably good instead of a guy who is good.
Yeah, I think it's also just like the whole philosophy, like the zero RB, hero RB, stuff like that. I think those are definitely going to be more popular, especially with how muddied a lot of backfields are probably going to be with such a good incoming class and free agency. It'll be tough to kind of get those true bell cows, but I could definitely see like the first round of dynasty drafts kind of switch from like mostly running backs to mostly receivers. Like I could see Jefferson being like arguably the number one overall pick in a redraft league because he's less likely to get hurt and is going to still put up crazy points. Same things with guys like Chase, Tyreek, even Devontae still, Cup coming back from injury. They're still obviously like the Ecklers of the world who are probably going to be Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, Bijan are still probably worth first round picks, but we've seen with Taylor kind of being banged up, McCaffrey all these years, Saquon all these years, running backs just take more of a beating. So is it safer to go receiver? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's it for the questions that were asked to us. Do you have any questions this week?
Not really that I've thought of. Do you have any?
As a representative of the Swallow Division, how does it feel that two of the three representatives are already eliminated from the playoffs in that sense, and Jasmus is your division's last hope to see a champion this year?
Okay.
I asked, how do you...
I don't know.
I'm trying, man.
Feel good. Jasmus was the best team this year. I hope Jasmus loses because I have his first round pick. So that's what I'm hoping for. And then, yeah, I mean, those three teams are probably, those four teams that are left are probably four of the strongest teams all season. Some of the healthiest at the end of the year. Obviously, they all are dealing with some injuries, but a lot of fantasy is just being healthy at the right time and then getting lucky in the playoffs. I was partially upset because if I got in, I think I still would have lost because I'm assuming Griff would have chose me over Zach, which more than fair. I put up 133, but then maybe I play like Noah Brown, who I took out for fun, and he had 23 instead of Olamide's 0. So then I would have been at like 150 something. So I still would have lost, but makes the pill a little bit easier to swallow. But it would have been a close game, exciting game. And then, I don't know. I wonder if I start a different QB. Dak put up 20. And then, yeah, if I go to like Kirk, who put up 32, I would have had to have like the perfect lineup to beat Griff. But like there was a opportunity if I snuck in. But I mean, putting up 160 is usually enough to get you a win.
Yeah, you would think. But I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Sock Talk. Only one more episode of Sock Talk left this season. And I think part of next week we'll explain what we'll do in the off season. But until then, we wish you a good week and a good luck in your own fantasy playoffs.
And a Merry Christmas.
And a happy Hanukkah too.